Welcome to Capitalizing Your Life, the podcast that shows you how to take control of your money, build lasting wealth, and create financial freedom using the infinite banking concept. If you're ready to make your cash flow work for you instead of someone else, you're in the right place. Here's your host, Glenn Yaney.
Welcome to Capitalizing Your Life podcast. I'm Glenn here, solo, and I wanted to go over some ideas that I've been thinking, and really it's hard to talk about it with guests on the show, but really I'll talk about myself a lot through this podcast and my own experiences. So the one thing I've been thinking of is, your household business. And this household business can be, we're basing our household business off of, money that comes in, which could be your W-2 pay, it could be your business income, it could be your real estate income. It's really coming into your system, your bank account, and it's flowing right back out to pay for expenses or going into a savings account or whatever the case be. And what I like to do, and what happened for me, and if we think about as a business, and is somebody going to invest in me personally as a business? And that's what we're trying to create, is an investable business for somebody to buy. And when people give me money to invest, as in, in real estate and stuff like that, it's like they look at me as a person and they look at my philosophy, I guess, of what I'm actually doing and how I operate. And what I can tell you is that the way I started was not an investable business. It started with me putting all my money into a 401k. My wife's money was going straight to a 401k. And I had this balance sheet with a large balance of 401k assets. And if an investor came to look at that, they would say, okay, you have two incomes and you have this, $200,000, $300,000 going into 401k assets. What are you going to do with those assets? And it's like, well, I'm going to give them to somebody else to invest. And I'm like, so if an investor looks at that, it's like, why would I give my money to you to put into your 401k? So that's the first thing that I would say is, if an investor is looking at my business, what am I doing with my capital? What am I going to do with their capital? If you're raising capital, if you want to be in real estate and a successful real estate operator, you're going to have to figure out how to raise capital. And that's part of it. And so, you're raising capital through a bank, you're raising capital through other investors, you're raising capital through your own system. You have to figure that out to be a big real estate operator. I'm in a real estate mastermind group. All of them raise capital. Very few don't raise capital. You either have to be born into money or you have to find it somewhere else. And so at this time, I'm putting all my money into my 401k. I'm wondering how my real estate friends are doing it. How are they buying real estate? How do you accumulate 50,000, 100,000? And the more you invest in real estate, the more you realize that you don't need the money as much. You just need a good deal and the money will follow. But I know when you get started, you have to find the capital. So finding the capital, the easiest way is to find your own capital. And a lot of people won't give you any money if you don't have capital yourself or experience with buying deals. So I started thinking, I'm like, okay, so all my income is coming from these two jobs, which one, my wife's job, we were putting 100% of her pay into a 401k. So it's kind of I can't even believe I did that. But at the same time, it was what I thought you had to do. That's what people told you to do. If you read any article, if you read about freaking all these stupid headlines on CNBC and all this stuff, you're 401k balances, this is the place you store it, deferred taxes, whatever. And it's I think I started meeting people that were financially independent. You start asking them how much, because I thought 401ks were the place to put your capital. How much do you have in your 401k? None. Nobody has money in their 401k that was financially independent. They knew the value of the capital. That's the problem. I didn't respect the value of the capital. So I had to I didn't know. I just put money in there and I just assumed that somebody else would take care of it. And really it's yeah, you put money in the index fund, but what is it really? You're thinking about, I'm putting my money into a speculative asset. If interest rates go up, what happens to these assets? My income, and it doesn't improve my life in any way when I put money into my 401k. But if I were to buy a cash flowing asset, even if it was $20,000, we say it pays you 12%, $200 a month is pretty good. $200 pays for my cable bill and maybe a night out, a dinner out with my wife, something like that. It's that $200 is way better than putting it into my 401k. So that's why I started slowly learning this. It wasn't an overnight process. I was still kind of married to the idea of this whole 401k thing. And I ended up slowly scaling down, putting a little less in, thinking, I ended up accumulating $300,000 in that 401k between the two of us. And then I thought about the match. Yeah. So I was worried about the match, the 5% that my company was matching. So then I started thinking about mindset and what happens when I'm still giving my money to somebody else to manage and the match, even if it's a 80%, 100% return, quote unquote, return on your money, it did not improve my life in any way. It's just a balance sheet item that looks like, oh, this is going up by, I'm getting 80% of my money invested by my company. And it's like, who cares? What if I had that, say that 5% of my pay, I was making it was $7,000 a year. So am I going to give up $7,000 a year to not become financially independent? Or would I pay $7,000 a year to become financially independent sooner? So I thought to myself, no longer am I putting any money in my 401k. I'm not even putting those bad ideas into my mind, thinking that I'm going to give my capital to somebody else to not give me income today. And I need income to be able to get to the next level. So having the income is pretty essential to my risk tolerance as well. So if I have no income and I have all my money tied up into some asset, I'm not going to leave my W-2 because I'm like, what am I going to do to pay all my bills? So I have to figure out a way to create cash flow in my life. And everybody's got their own way. They can start a business, they can buy real estate. These are all things that we can do to become financially independent, but it doesn't happen through tying it up to while I'm 65. So immediately have to remove that idea. So we're going back to the investor that's wanting to invest in me. I am no longer giving my money in a 401k. So now we have to think, what do I do to create more income? And I can tell you the easiest, most scalable business is real estate. It's like one of the things where you buy an income producing asset and then you manage it. Hey guys, if you'd like to learn more about the infinite banking concept and how to flow your capital through your own financing system, my team and I are here to help. With over 35 years of experience, we can guide you in building a properly structured whole life policy tailored to you and your family. See the scheduling link below. Now, back to the show. So I'm no longer, putting money in my 401k. I'm no longer giving my money to somebody else because why would anybody want to invest in somebody that's giving their money to somebody else? That's the first thought. Second thought is, where am I going to put my money? And I started buying real estate. So real estate was the business I was in. I was working for a large REIT. So I understood the business. So that doesn't mean that everyone has to be into real estate, but I do believe if you start finding your niche and getting into groups that are doing your niche, small business groups, because if I'm like in a REIT business, guess what? I'm going to be an employee because a REIT is massive, billions of dollars. How about I join a real estate meetup group that's figuring out ways to create their own business? Or if I'm a roofer, I'm going to figure out how to start a roofing company, get into roofing groups. Or if I'm a plumber or electrician, it's like you start surrounding yourselves with people that are doing what you're doing a little bit further ahead. You don't have to go to the person that's 10 steps ahead. You need to find the person that's 2 or 3 steps ahead to be able to grow the business. And that's what I did. I found mentors that some were 20 steps ahead that I met, but I would say that one was about 2 or 3 steps ahead. Another one was, he had 600 units when I first met him and I had 1 unit, I had 1 piece of real estate. So anyways, I have to grow what's in here. I have to grow what's in my mind to grow my income. And that's what has to happen. Like I need to be surrounded with people to make it feel like it's normal. If I want to make $1 million a year, I have to find people that make $1 million a year and be around those people. Because if I don't see anybody making $1 million a year, then it's going to seem like it's unattainable. So I'm trying to surround myself with people of where I want to be. So when we talk about investments, what I would say, like every year I make under $1 million a year. Say if I make $200,000, that means that it costs me $800,000 in ignorance a year until I get to $1 million. So like every year my income goes up. That's the tax that I am paying on not making $1 million, because there's people out there that could lose their job or lose their income of making $1 million a year. And within a short period of time, they're able to do it again. It's because they know how to get there. So what I have to do is improve my mental, like my skills on how to get to $1 million a year. And that's really where we invest our capital. And that's why I talk about capitalizing your life. We're capitalizing a properly structured life insurance product. We're growing this asset. And guess what? If it takes me 2 to 3 years to invest the first dollar, Not that you can, like in the first year you put 100 grand into the policy, you're going to have $60,000 to $70,000 of cash available. Second year, it gets better. And then the third year it gets even better. So, and by the year 3 to 5, every dollar you've put in is available for cash value. So it's like, I can tell you that when I was in 2015, I looked at a mobile home park. It was 16 units. It would have been so easy to buy for me today because I know how to buy mobile home parks. I had to learn how to do that, but I couldn't find one person to make it happen. And this deal was $400,000. It's worth probably 1.6 million today. And I could not find anyone to give me the money or trust me at that time. In 2015, nobody was going to give, all I needed is $100,000. So think about if I were to capitalize my policy and put money into this properly structured, it's like an ear tag for my investment capital. And at the same time, protecting my human life value for my business, which is my household and my family. It's like my income is protected. And also I'm growing this capital base to be able to go invest later. So if I were to have had the money, I would have been financially independent in 2015. It took me 2022 to figure it out. And I can tell you that it's not like an overnight process, but I can tell you that over time, I learned more and more that I needed to focus on my expenses and my cash flow. So lower my expenses to also increase my cash flow through earned income and passive real estate. But I don't think that's for everybody. I think that we have our own business that we can look into, but we have to start thinking like an owner. So what does the infinite banking concept do for us? It makes us owners in our lives. So now I no longer give my money to other people. I find ways to drive my expenses down and I increase my income. And that's my mindset even today. So the more I put towards that, my energy, life energy, my income energy, my capital energy, all this information and assets, if I am 100% focused on this one thing, it's going to eventually take off. And so, now we look at like, okay, so we're no longer doing that. So now I need to look for mastermind groups that are going to really service this thinking. So I just started, I could tell you that the 3 places I started in mastermind groups is one was a capital raising mastermind. I went there to learn how other capital raisers were raising capital. It cost about $6,000 at the time. And then I learned like what guys are doing to raise capital. It made me a little bit more sophisticated as an investor, understanding their process. I thought I would go there and I'd find investors there, but I learned how stringent some of these capital allocators are. And I started looking at my own business on how I can be better to find outside capital. And then I went to a real estate mastermind group and I watched how these guys were raising capital. And some of these guys were newer in the business, some of them were further along. And I could tell you that they were figuring it out their own way. And I learned some stuff through that. I actually, through being in that mastermind group, I grew my personal portfolio to 140 units. So I have 600 that I have under management that I have ownership in. And then I have another portfolio that it's like, well, part of that 600 units is me and one other partner that we own real estate together. And what I learned in that mastermind group, it cost me $4,000. Might have seemed like, oh, you're going to waste $4,000. Guess what? I bought 120 units because I joined that mastermind group. And now I'm starting this new one, which is entrepreneurs. It's an entrepreneur mastermind group. So it's more of a mindset. You're not allowed to pitch your ideas to anybody. You're just going there and you have like more of a, community of entrepreneurs that are growing and trying to grow their business. So I've only gone to one meetup, but I can tell you that group is going to change my mindset. There's going to be people in that group that are way further ahead of me, that have way different mindsets. And I paid $11,000 to start out to get into that group. And I thought, my wife was like, well, do you think that's a little expensive? And I was like, I feel like that 11,000 will pay itself back in a very short period. And really, so far with these mastermind groups, I have definitely made my money back in every single one. It's like the knowledge that we get. If you think about what college cost, and we're talking about being around people that are actually doing what we want to do, what would you pay to be in that group? And it's like, how much money do you think you're going to make by being around the right people? And that's been my new thing. And through Capitalizing Your Life podcast and helping people create an abundant mindset, like what's the first thought that comes to mind whenever you hear me say that I'm going to make $1 million a year, through real estate and other assets, it's like, is it, because this is what happens to me. This is where my limiting belief comes. It's like, oh, yeah, so do I. I want to make $1 million. But really, what is it that keeps you from thinking that you're going to make $1 million? Like, why can't you make $1 million a year? Or if you're already making $1 million a year, why can't you make $5 million a year? Like, we have to think more open-minded. We have to know that people are doing it. If you meet a rich person, they all know somebody that's richer than them. Like, there's no end to, like, even, that's why, Jeff Bezos and all these people, they start to accumulate real estate next to each other. It's because they're trying to be around like-minded people. They don't want to be the richest person in the room. They're trying to grow as a person. And that's why they're spending 200 million or 100, I think it was 170 million that Mark Zuckerberg bought unfinished house. So he still has to finish the house, but he paid 170 million to be on, I think it's called Indian Creek Island or something like that. And, these people are still trying to get to that level. And how do we do that? We capitalize our life. We focus on putting all of our attention, all of our, resources, and everything is going to the goal that what we're trying to do. And I want everybody to hit their goals. And that's what I'm trying to, help be a reference or help people get, closer to that number. And I'm excited for all of you guys to, let me know in the comments below of what your goals are, what your plans are, and how you plan on getting there. Tell me that I'm just an idiot for thinking like this. I've been seeing a lot of that recently. And I think to become successful, you have to have haters. And I would say that I embrace it and love to see the comments. And on that note, you guys have a wonderful week and have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Capitalizing Your Life podcast. Please rate, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share with someone who you think would enjoy listening.